In the dark alley of that deep night, when everyone around was paralyzed with fear, an ordinary woman stood up bravely against two armed police constables. But, in a moment of carelessness, one constable crossed the line of arrogance, aiming at the woman who stepped forward to save the rickshaw puller, who was none other than the Inspector General of Police, IGP Noor Jahan Begum herself. Constable Robin yelled, "Get lost from here, you old hag! Who called you here?" Saying this with extreme audacity, he delivered a loud slap on her back. The sound of that slap shattered the silence of the slum. Inspector General of Police IGP Noor Jahan Begum had signed her career with integrity and courage at every step. However, the news of the deep-rooted corruption that had plagued her beloved police force for the past few months caused her profound distress. Complaints of regular extortion, unjustified harassment, and displays of power from the city's low-income people deeply concerned her. Although investigations were ordered in the files, field-level personnel were getting away by making evidence disappear. Noor Jahan realized that this illness could not be cured from the top. The root had to be struck. This thought led to a daring plan, an operation in disguise. On the late autumn night, as the clock hands were approaching midnight, she left her official residence with extreme caution. She wore a simple old cotton sari, carried a stained cloth bag, and had thick black-framed glasses on her eyes. No one could have imagined that this was the Iron Lady who headed the vast police force. Only her trusted driver and security chief, Rafiq, knew about her plan. Rafiq waited for her in an old yellow taxi. The car moved towards Noorpur Bosti, the darkest area of the city. This was the area where people were tormented by police oppression. The inner alleys of Noorpur Bosti were foul-smelling and unhygienic. The streetlights were either broken or flickering dimly. Getting out of the taxi, Noor Jahan entered the alley alone. A short distance ahead, she saw a cluster of people next to a small, corrugated tin-roofed tea stall. There were 4 people, 2 of whom were clearly police constables. Their names were Robin and Shamsul. A rickshaw puller named Manohar was sitting on the ground in front of them. Tears were in his eyes, his hands folded in supplication. Manohar begged in a piteous voice, "Sir, my wife is sick at home. I haven't earned anything today. Please have mercy." Constable Robin laughed heartily and struck Manohar's ribs with the stick he held. "Don't pretend to have no earnings. If you don't put money in our pockets, you won't be able to take your rickshaw out tonight. Come on, your rickshaw will be confiscated today." The other constable, Shamsul, stepped forward and snatched the key to Manohar's rickshaw. This scene ignited a fire within Noor Jahan. She knew that these criminals hiding in police uniforms were staining the face of her force. She quickly stepped forward. "What are you doing? Where do you get the audacity to oppress a poor man like this?" Her voice was firm, but her disguise added a slight, aged stammer to it. Constable Robin looked at the woman and laughed contemptuously. "Who are you, coming here to interfere with police duty in the middle of the night?"
Shamsul hissed, "Get lost from here, you old hag, or we will arrest you and put you in the lockup." Noor Jahan took another step forward. "I will not let this injustice happen." Constable Robin was now blinded by rage. He could not control himself any longer. This ordinary woman, who dared to step forward to save Manohar, would have to pay the ultimate price for her impudence and arrogance. In an instant, Robin raised his hand and delivered a loud slap on Noor Jahan's back from behind. The moment she was slapped, Noor Jahan felt an electric current course through her body. Not just the arrogance of her rank, but the promise of her duty to the entire force echoed in her ears. Her head did not spin. Instead, her mind was now as cold as ice and as hard as steel. Immediately after the slap, Robin realized his mistake, because the woman's eyes had changed. There was no longer the simplicity of an ordinary housewife in those eyes, but the devastating wrath of a powerful officer. "Rafiq, come here immediately." Noor Jahan's voice was no longer common. It was as deep as thunder and commanding. Rafiq, who was waiting cautiously a short distance away, quickly drove the taxi near. He took off his uniform jacket and approached the constables. "How dare you? Do you know whose body you have touched?" Rafiq roared. Robin and Shamsul were still stunned with fear. They saw that Rafiq was not just a driver. He was a high-ranking officer who stood beside Noor Jahan and saluted her. Noor Jahan took out her real identity card. The golden letters on the ID card read, IGP, Bangladesh Police, Noor Jahan Begum. In an instant, all the blood in Constable Robin's body turned to water. He stumbled and fell to his knees on the ground, shaking. No words came out of his mouth. Shamsul was in the same state. They never in their wildest dreams thought that the ordinary woman standing in front of them was the IGP herself. "From this moment, both of you are suspended. Rafiq, handcuff them both and take them to the headquarters. Not a departmental case, but a direct criminal case will be filed against them for oppressing the public." Noor Jahan instructed. There was no mercy or weakness in her voice. The rickshaw puller Manohar watched the scene in astonishment. He still could not believe that the police chief herself had come down to the streets for a poor man like him and established justice even after being slapped. The next morning, extreme tension was prevailing at the police headquarters. The news of the slap on IGP Noor Jahan spread like wildfire. Everyone from the police commissioner to the ordinary constables was shocked. Noor Jahan made no attempt to conceal the incident and revealed everything to the public. She clearly stated in front of the media, "The police force is the servant of the people, not their master. The bigger crime than laying hands on me is extorting money from a helpless citizen." Robin did not just hit me for his actions. He struck the trust and dignity of this force. He must face the harshest punishment so that every police member understands the consequences of abusing power. A departmental inquiry began. But Noor Jahan was not satisfied with just departmental punishment. On behalf of Manohar and the other victims, she filed a full criminal case against Robin and Shamsul for extortion, oppression, and physical assault. She became the main witness in this case. The courtroom was packed on the day of the hearing. No one had ever dared to file a case against the police chief before. When IGP Noor Jahan, dressed in her simple cotton sari, stood in the witness box and described the moment she was slapped on her back, the courtroom fell silent. Her statement was devoid of emotion but full of logic. "Honorable Court," Noor Jahan said, "my rank is much greater than this injury. But this injury was a symbol of the oppression inflicted on the crores of ordinary people whose voices do not have the courage to reach. I am standing against the members of my own force because I believe that to protect the honor of the police uniform, the garbage inside it must be cleaned. Justice is essential for this force and every citizen of this country." The judge accepted all the evidence and testimonies. The testimony of the rickshaw puller Manohar, the tea stall owner's footage, and the fearless testimony of the IGP herself was enough to prove the guilt of Robin and Shamsul. The court's historic verdict was announced. Constable Robin, main accused for slapping the IGP and extortion, 5 years of rigorous imprisonment for oppressing the public and permanent dismissal from the job. Constable Shamsul, 3 years of rigorous imprisonment for aiding in extortion and dismissal from the job. The court further ordered that all confiscated property of the convicted police personnel be sold to provide financial compensation to the rickshaw puller Manohar and other victims. This verdict marked a new era in the history of the police department. A single slap on the IGP's back that night woke up the entire force. Corrupt officials started counting their days in fear. They realized that their chief was no longer confined to office files. She was ready to fight injustice on the ground. Noor Jahan's undercover operation and her exemplary step to establish justice, even after the operation she suffered, earned her the title, the Yaji with a Rod of Justice. Her courage restored a new faith in the police and the law in the hearts of every person in the country. IGP Noor Jahan wrote in the final line of her diary, "The mark of slap on my back may fade with time, but the mark of justice created by this injury will forever remain indelible in the hearts of my force and in the history of this nation. Power is for service, not for ruling. I am ready to pay any price to establish this truth." IGP Noor Jahan knew the road was long, But that night's operation and that historic verdict in the courtroom proved that everyone is equal in the eyes of the law and change is possible under a fearless leader. और अगर आपको ये सच्ची और दिल को छू लेने वाली कहानी पसंद आई हो तो प्लीज़ इसे लाइक कीजिए, अपने दोस्तों के साथ शेयर कीजिए और हमारे चैनल मायाजाल टीम को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलिएगा, क्योंकि यहाँ पर आपको ऐसी ही कहानियाँ मिलेंगी जो दिल को छू जाती हैं और जीवन को नई सीख देती हैं। मिलते हैं अगली कहानी में।